So today we're talking about something super, super important that can actually change your life, your business, your career, your relationships, anything about it. Very, very important, and that is perspective. Now, not only were we just talking about perspective and the importance of having a good perspective, but the next level that we're going to get into is having a long-term perspective versus a short-term perspective. Personally, I learned a quote actually from shout out to my 10th grade. I think his name was Mr. Lohman. Shout out to Mr. Lohman, my 10th grade math teacher. Or was it 11th grade? Regardless, 10th or 11th grade, Mr. Lohman, he said, perspective is reality. And that quote has literally lived with me, obviously, since I was in high school. And that's probably, like 10, 11 years ago since I heard that quote. And I still remember it. Distinctly remember where I was sitting. Like that literally stuck with me. So perspective is reality. What does that mean? That means that what you believe, how you see the world is your own reality. So if you believe that good things happen, you will see, or if you believe, if your perspective is that good things happen, then you will be like seeing those good things. You will be experiencing those good things. If your perspective is that everybody's bad and they're always out to get you, that will be your reality. And I truly believe that you get what you see kind of thing. There's another quote that I heard that it's like you get what you expect. So if you expect people to treat you nicely, they end up treating you nicely. If you expect people to walk all over you, well, you kind of get walked all over. And it's really just some interesting concepts. So perspective of life is good, being grateful, having gratitude, having long-term goals and visions. But now I want to kind of change this and kind of go a little farther into a long-term perspective, not expected perspective, and what that means. So the long-term perspective versus the short-term perspective, I think is super, super, super important. What I mean by that is I have these goals, and actually let me backtrack one step and say I personally, my one of my least favorite questions is when people say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I have no stinking clue, man. I can barely see where I'm going to see myself tomorrow, man. And the reason is because I have these goals. I have these goals in mind. I have these desires and things that I'm working towards. But I don't know if it's going to take 1 day, 1 year, or 10 years to get there. I just know that I want to get there. For example, I want to play Madison Square Garden. Do I think that that's going to happen this year or next year or the year after? I don't know. I just know that I'm putting the steps in place to get there. And I think a part of the problem that with setting these specific goals is if you don't reach them, so say I said I want to play Madison Square Garden by the time I'm 30. What does it matter if I play it when I'm 29 or 31? If I play Madison Square Garden, when I play Madison Square Garden, I play Madison Square Garden. So by setting this extra pressure of having it by 30, what's the point, right? All you're doing is kind of potentially setting yourself up for a failure of not hitting it by 30 or whatever the case is, when maybe it's just 31 or 32, right? So still having those goals without necessarily having timelines. Now, timelines can be cool guides, personally, I think. So, for example, I think, if I remember correctly, I think I set myself a goal of, I think it was a 500-person, selling out a 500-person show in 2022. And I think I set, for 2023, I feel like it was like a 10,000 person show, and then 2024 is Madison Square Garden. That's like the goals in my head that I would love to try to do. But if they don't happen, I'm okay with that because I still believe that I will get there one day. See, this is the key. You have to still believe in yourself. You have to believe that you will get there at some point. And if you have these short-term perspectives, you're going to be doing things in the short term to try to get the money tomorrow, or to try to play the show tomorrow, to try to get the subscribers tomorrow, or the growth tomorrow, or the relationship tomorrow, where that short-term growth can be really shallow and doesn't have the roots, right? If you plant a tree, if you plant a seed and it grows overnight, those roots don't have time to develop and get strong. Whereas if like an oak tree that takes forever to grow, it's significantly more strong and more stable. So I'm okay with the slow growth because I have the confidence that I will be there at some point someday. So I'm willing to leave money on the table, or leave subscribers on the table, or leave growth on the table, because if it doesn't align with what I believe in and what I want to achieve, then I'm willing to let that go, because I believe that the long-term growth, the long-term perspective is way more than the short-term. Now that also, this is super important too, have a long-term perspective in relationships and in finance and in work, in the sense of, this is actually something that I struggle with sometimes. Sometimes I'm frustrated. I got my list right here. If I don't get my list done, but I have to remind myself, no, I'm playing the long game here. So if I wanted to film 10 videos today and I only filmed 2, the long-term perspective, as long as I'm continually on the broad stroke scale working towards my dreams, the day-to-day isn't as important as long as it's all pointing towards those dreams. So same thing with a relationship. And it's the reason I'm actually filming this video, it made me I thought of this last night actually, because I had to work. There was some things I wanted to get done because with just deadlines and what my goals I'm trying to do for the week and stuff. And I usually, like, as soon as my wife gets home, I'm done for the night. But I was thinking, I was like, I really want to get this stuff done. So I said, you know what? Long-term perspective in our relationship, I never work late. I never say, hey, sweetheart, like, I have to work. I never do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why I had to tell myself, I said, you know what? I'm often done working when she gets home. Tonight is the exception. I need to get stuff done. So I told her, I was like, hey, I need to get. She's like, that's totally fine. But I had to remind myself the long-term perspective in our relationship. The majority of time, it's okay. This is making sense. Like, the majority long-term perspective is that I spend the time with her. So these exceptions here and there where I have to work late or I have to, go to, travel by myself, or long-term perspective, right? What's the long-term goals, and what is, rather than looking at the one day, look at the 1 week, the 1 month, the 1 year perspective, right? I could have a bad day on a certain video where it doesn't do as well. Well, how does the week look? How does the month look? I can put out a song, that doesn't do that well. Well, how did the last 5 songs do? The last 10 songs? So have a long-term perspective rather than the day-to-day perspective. Work hard in the day, but also realize that, have the patience that it's going to pay off in the end, right? Don't just take the money today because it's good money today when it doesn't align with your values, or get the views or subscribers today but it doesn't align with your values. So play the long game. Hope that helps. I think it's something that I really try to focus on, and I think that it could potentially change your life. God bless. Have a great day. Peace out.